Comrades, the most I've ever actually been scared while watching a movie was watching the 2003 five-star classic Finding Nemo as a child, and honestly, after watching it again as an adult, I can understand why I was so scared. Like, not only is it a movie with many scenes that connect with children's fears, but it's also a movie which connects to many serious themes for adults and children alike. It begins, of course, with the prologue, where Marlin, the father clownfish, has his wife and almost all of his children ripped from him by a barracuda attack, leaving him with only one child, Nemo, who has a physical disability throughout his entire life because of the barracuda attack. And this kind of sad prologue isn't too uncommon in kids' movies. You know, The Lion King has the death of Mufasa, the entire beginning of Up is just straight up tragic. Tarzan's parents die at the beginning, and this is an important scene in the movie. It's not there to scare you or make you sad for no reason. It sets up the relationship between Marlin and Nemo. It explains why Marlin is so overprotective of Nemo. And it does something else important too. It's a bit of world building. When I saw this movie, I didn't know anything about the ocean. I didn't even know what a barracuda was. I thought this was a shark. But this scene really establishes that the ocean is a dangerous place where bad things can happen, not because you did anything wrong, but simply because you were there. And for a brief moment afterwards, it seems like it's going to be a normal kids movie. Honestly, like, the central conflict between Nemo and his father is that Nemo is excited about going to school for the first time and seeing and exploring the world. You know, he is curious and captivated by the beauty of the ocean, and it makes sense. Like, look at this. This is beautiful. And while Nemo has no memory of the barracuda attack, for Marlin, it's still very recent. He is very aware that the ocean, which Nemo is so excited to explore, is a place where you can be killed simply for existing, and he is worried for his son. And as the audience, there is no separation between the attack and Nemo's excitement to go to school. So our empathy is really kind of split between two perspectives. You know, one is terrified of the dangers of the ocean, the other is really enthralled by its beauty. But very quickly we're faced with a new terror of the ocean. Nemo, rebelling against his father's overprotectiveness, touches a boat and then is taken by a human being. And I think this is when Marlin is really kind of pushed into being the main character of the movie. Nemo is gone, so we can't see his perspective. And I think especially as adults watching it, we can't empathize so much with him. And now it seems much more justified to be worried about the dangers of the ocean than to be excited about exploring it. But, you know, this is a really important scene, and there are a few elements I want to explore here because I think this is really what cements it as being a very scary movie. One, being separated from your parent. Separation from your parent is probably one of the scariest things many small children have ever actually experienced firsthand. Like, many children have memories of being lost or thinking that they are lost and alone and being terrified because that is terrifying. They are in danger. And, you know, if they are young, many of them won't have experienced much else that was actually scary, where they actually were in danger for their life in any kind of way. So this proximity to the experience of the young audience creates a heightened sense of reality, not found in other children's media. You know, being trampled by a herd of wildebeest is scary, but it's abstracted from most children's real-world experience. Second, pacing. Children might be familiar with other movies where something bad happens at the beginning, but this is the second very bad thing, very scary thing happening right after the movie establishes that there are real dangers, there are real consequences in this world, in the ocean. Because bad things have already happened, because people have already died, children might not know that Nemo will be okay. After all, his siblings weren't. Adults will probably know, they'll probably guess that nothing really bad will happen to Nemo, but that doesn't mean that kids will have the same understanding because they won't have seen as many movies to make that judgment. Third, disobedience. Almost all kids have disobeyed their parents at one point or another, and with that can come the fear that something really bad will happen. You know, the fact that Nemo was taken just moments after disobeying his father really kind of buttresses the sense of reality. Like, the fear is no longer like an abstract fear for some random fish, but rather a real fear of separation and moral failure that many children have actually experienced to varying degrees firsthand. And it's also in a broader context where we just saw a man lose his wife and most of his children to a random attack. Fourth, cosmic horror. I've made some videos about early H.P. Lovecraft stories and the beginning of cosmic horror, and the first story to introduce the Cthulhu mythos is Dagon, a story about a creature from the ocean. I'll leave a link to that video in the description for anyone who wants more details, but really the important bit is that the ocean is an important starting place for cosmic horror because of its vast depth and its incomprehensible nature, and like the potential of the creatures that live down there. We really can't know, especially like at the time of the early 20th century at least. We know much more about the ocean now, obviously. But this moment from Finding Nemo really seems to be like a reversal of this idea, where the land creatures, we, the humans, are the incomprehensible monster. You know, we are like gods from another world that intrude without reason, understanding, or care. And like, Nemo doesn't even know what a boat is. He has no way of comprehending the enormous creature that just took him, or, you know, any way of understanding where he is going. And it's not clear that Marlin knows a lot more either, really. And there's hardly any rest between this moment and the next scary part of the movie. Marlin runs in a full panic after the boat that he can't reach up to, of course, and he finds Dory, a fish with some kind of brain injury, or like an intellectual disability. It's not really clear. Like, you know, they describe it as short-term memory loss, where she forgets virtually everything. You know, once again, this isn't representative of a real disability, but is a broader framework for representing a disabled character in a children's movie. So the two of them, Marlin and Dory, run into a shark, and the shark is menacing and appears to be speaking in euphemisms where the literal content of what he says would be friendly, but the tone of how he says it and his presentation suggests that he will eat them, that he is a danger, which is honestly a lot creepier than just a random shark attack.
So, what's a couple of bites like you doing out so late? Then how'd you morsels like to come to a little get together I'm having?
You mean like a party?
Yeah, right, a party. Oh, come on, I insist.
Okay.
And he takes them away, which means not only can Marlin not look for Nemo anymore, but he actually is in danger himself as the shark takes him and Dory into a literal minefield, and within that minefield into an abandoned ship where it seems like they're about to be eaten by a group of sharks, until we learn that the sharks are in some sort of like AA recovery program where they no longer eat fish. And for a brief moment, you can kind of sigh in relief. It's a little funny, until Dory bleeds and the shark smells it and is transformed into something else, something monstrous and out of control. Like, seriously, look at how his eyes change here.
Dory, are you okay? That's good. Intervention!
Like, apart from being actually kind of an interesting metaphor for addiction, this part of the movie is terrifying. I think being chased by a monster has to be one of the most primal fears, and it all weaves together, connecting the fears of death, separation, and being hunted or chased, until the minefield blows up, and that does not help things. But it's only at this point that we learn that Nemo is okay, or at least as okay as you can be in a dentist office. I think this is kind of a turning point in the movie where it starts to seem less like a horror movie, but I do think there are some aspects that are designed to connect with the audience's fears. For one, Nemo is in a dentist office. Like, he could have been in a fish tank anywhere, a restaurant, a bookstore, someone's apartment, but he is in a dentist office. And this does allow for some, like, kind of comedic moments, but I think part of the reason is that many children are very afraid of the dentist office. They're afraid of going to the dentist, you know, reasonably or not.
That you have a very serious mental problem. The trouble originates in this area, here. The area that we in the medical profession like to refer to as the brain. You see, son, it's just no good. I hate to be so blunt, but you have the insanity of a manatee.
I know. People are always saying that. What do you think's wrong with my brain, doctor?
How should I know? I'm a dentist. But here's what I do know. If a tooth is bad, you pull it.
But my teeth are fine.
Yep, mad brain's got to come out, boy.
So his placement in a dentist office increases our ability to recognize his location as a place of danger and discomfort. Nemo will also be going home with this girl. And they describe her as a fish killer. Like, you can't tell me that's not supposed to be, like, a horror reference. Like, that's literally the Psycho music. And there's another moment, which I think really connects with children's fears, that comes right after this. You know, Marlin and Dory go down into a dark trench and find an anglerfish, and a fear of the dark is probably the most common fear among young children. And, probably because it's a visual medium, I don't think it's very often exploited by movies. But after this, it's a lot calmer. There are moments in this movie that I would term kind of intellectually scary, but I don't see them as having the same emotional weight. Like, when they're swimming among the jellyfish who are stuck in a whale's mouth, you may understand that the story is portraying a risky situation, just like in any adventure movie, but it doesn't carry the same sense of fear. And so my question is, why is the beginning of this movie so damn scary? And when, the rest of it feels more like a normal adventure movie? What purpose does this serve in the story structure? Part 2, the world is scary and Marlin's a jerk. Okay, so another weird thing about this movie I kind of alluded to a little bit before, for a kid's movie that's kind of weird, is that Marlin, the father, is the main character. He gets most of the screen time, and he gets the major character development within the story. Like, Nemo gets some character development in the sense that he is more confident throughout the movie, and he learns that his father, is overprotective of him because he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Nemo, but, his father is still willing to risk himself in order to save Nemo. But, at the beginning of the movie, Nemo's a young fish excited to start school and learn about the world, and at the end of the movie, he's a young fish excited to start school and learn about the world. But, Marlin needs to truly overcome his fears, and I think there are two very telling moments. One is where the sea turtle stops Marlin from saving his baby.
Oh my goodness! Whoa, kill the motor, dude. Let us see what Squirt does flying solo. Little dudes are just eggs, leave them on the beach to hatch, and then cuckoo-cuckoo, they find their way back to the big old blip.
But dude, how do you know when they're ready?
Well, you never really know, but when they know, you'll know,
And the other is when he tells Dory that he promised that nothing would ever happen to Nemo.
Well, you can't never let anything happen to him. Then nothing would ever happen to him. Not much fun for little Harpo.
They don't say that nothing bad will ever happen. They say that we need to let go even though bad things will happen. We need to accept that bad things and difficult things are part of life. And, I think this is kind of general advice that, a lot of people give. You hear, the serenity prayer and whatever. But people don't really acknowledge just how, terrifying that is. Think of this from the sea turtle's perspective. He lays some eggs and he knows for a fact that some of them won't make it. Some of his babies will die. That is just part of life. So it's not like this happy-go-lucky message of, chill out, everything will be okay. It's everything won't be okay, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with not being okay. And, Marlin has a hard time accepting his son kind of as a person free to make his own mistakes.
Nemo! Nemo, don't move! Don't move! You'll never get out of here yourself. I'll do it.
He doesn't want Nemo to go to school or see anything in the world, and I think it's not just because he lost his wife and other kids, but honestly, I also think it's, because Nemo is disabled. Marlin promises to never let anything happen to Nemo, but he feels like something already did, he already failed as a father, and so he tries to compensate by being overprotective. Now, honestly, there's nothing wrong with being aware of real limitations caused by disabilities. If you're blind, for example, being an airline pilot probably, isn't in the cards for you. If you have a disability that affects your fine motor control a lot, you probably won't be a surgeon, that's life. Or if you're a relatively average person without a disability, you're not going to be an NBA player. That's just not in the cards for a normal human being. But Marlin doesn't seem to be reacting just to actual limitations, caused by a disability. He's overly restrictive. Imagine, for example, if a parent of a child who uses a wheelchair didn't want to send their kid to go to school because of their disability, because they use a wheelchair. That would just be ableist. Kids in wheelchairs should go to school. There's no reason they shouldn't. And that is how Marlin treats Nemo in the beginning of the story. And this isn't just an attitude he has with Nemo, but when he extends to Dory, who's also disabled. He's untrusting and dismissive of Dory to his own detriment several times throughout the movie, despite the fact that Dory is the single most helpful person in the movie, not just because she's the only one willing to try to help, but because of her ability to read and communicate, which are necessary for him to reach Nemo. He even tries to abandon Dory at one point in the movie, believing that she will slow him down, even after, she's helped him tremendously. And the movie makes the connection between his ableist treatment of Nemo and his treatment of Dory explicit in this scene when he's talking to Dory, but has a Freudian slip.
You think you could do these things, but you can't, Nemo!
But Dory proves to Marlin time and time again not just that she's good, not just that she's helpful, but that he needs her. Marlin survives unimaginable dangers, these very scary scenes, but he never does it alone. He's always with Dory, and eventually he learns, he listens and he comes to trust her and value her as a true friend. And I think that's why the beginning of the movie must be so scary, not just to push Marlin to accept that bad things happen and they're a normal part of life, but to push him to trust and to understand that disabled people like Dory and his son can also survive scary things in the world. And that whether he likes it or not, they will face scary things. And there's a really interesting connection between Marlin and the dentist that takes Nemo. The dentist says that he found Nemo struggling for his life, swimming for his life because of his weak fin. And it's as if he thinks that by giving Nemo to his niece who neglects and abuses fish, that he's giving Nemo a better life because he is disabled. The only other fish in the dentist tank that is from the ocean that the dentist took himself is also physically disabled. It's Gil. So it could be that the dentist has like a savior complex where, he thinks that he can decide what's best for the fish, and he has this pattern of taking disabled fish from the wild and putting them in his tank, in this patronizing belief that he can decide what's best for them. When in reality, we see that the fish in captivity are not happy to be there and seem to develop problems related to their captivity, like, germophobia, a belief that one's reflection is in fact another fish, and an obsession with bubbles, The fish are not portrayed as happy or particularly functional. And basically, the dentist uses the fish tank as like an institution for disabled fish. And this might be a little bit beyond the scope of this video, but disabled people, human beings, not just cartoons, are often forced into institutions, including like nursing homes, for example, where they're denied basic freedoms and human rights and are cut off from the community. And in these institutions, they are subjected to horrific conditions and abuse, when in reality, they can live better and more happily with their human rights within the community and outside of the institution. And it's hard not to see, like, the fish tank is representative of those institutions. The fish in Finding Nemo do not overcome their disabilities. They're still disabled at the end of the movie. But Marlin learns to trust them to be their own people, to take their own risks. And I think there's an important moment in the movie where, like, Gil convinces Nemo to take a risk in order for, them all to escape together. And it doesn't work. It doesn't go well. And Nemo almost dies. And the important part of this here is, like, the rest of the fish don't tell Nemo to do it again. But Nemo chooses to do it again. He chooses it. Not because he was talked into it, but because he chooses to, he wants to, he can make that decision. He is his own person, and he has the dignity of choosing his own risks. And this is part of what Marlin accepts when he becomes a better father at the end of the movie. And Marlin learns to listen to Dory. He learns that she might at some points know better than he does, and he should listen to her and to his son. And ultimately, he learns that he needs to let his son grow up like all the other fish get to do. Part 3. The real meaning of Finding Nemo. Of course, the real meaning of Finding Nemo isn't that you have to face your fears or let your children grow up. It's not about ableism or even Marxism, as much as I wanted to do a Marxist reading of Finding Nemo. No. The true meaning of Finding Nemo is that you should stop eating animals.
Fish are friends, not food.
I'm joking a little bit here, but I did notice that there is a video of a guy who wants to eat every kind of fish, and when he does the episode on clownfish, there does seem to be an emotional reaction with varying degrees of seriousness because of its connection to Finding Nemo. I'll leave a link below for anyone who wants to see for themselves, and I do have to wonder if movies like this have managed to change our emotional perception of animals. Now, if you'd like to talk about another animated movie where the central message is that you should stop eating animals, here, you can click over here and talk about Chicken Run. Great movie. But don't forget to drop me a like before you go, and remember, good night, good day, good potato.